After my car accident, nobody showed up. Hours later, my brother posted about a road trip with the real crew. 4 days later, my mom called. Not to check on me, but to ask for money. I found out I wasn't invited to Christmas in the driest way possible, a 3-line email. We've decided it would be best if you didn't come. Everyone feels uncomfortable because of you. We hope you understand. There was no call, no attempt at a conversation. Just a Tuesday morning ping while my coffee was going cold and my laptop was still waking up. I sat there with the mug half full, staring at the sentence until the words felt like a bad joke that would rearrange itself into something less humiliating. It never did. The tone was almost clinical, like a scheduling change, except this was someone erasing me from their plans. From their lives. Looking back, the signs had been quiet, almost polite. My mom stopped asking if I could come early to help cook. My dad's calls were strictly transactional. Can you transfer me $X? And my brother and his wife started acting as if I might contaminate the silverware just by breathing in the same room. Still, I kept showing up. I brought casseroles, I helped with the turkey, I laughed at jokes that weren't funny, I polished the silver. I kept filling the gaps so nobody would have to notice. But this email changed the rules. They said I made people uncomfortable, then handed me the bill. A few days later Venmo lit up. $1,900. From my dad. Subject line, your share of the holiday food. I made a noise, not angry, not sad, something else, like disbelief mixed with sarcasm. They'd formally uninvited me, declared me the problem, and then expected me to pay nearly $2,000 for the privilege of not being present. So I hit send, $1.90. Note, didn't eat. Don't pay. I didn't expect it to be cathartic. It was. That tiny message was the opening move. After that, I started cutting the ties that were quietly tied to me for years. The Costco card, on my name, billed to my account, vanished from their wallet. I pictured my mom at the checkout, king crab and paper towels in her cart, sliding the card with a practiced smile and getting the declined that she never expected. I didn't warn her. Next I closed our shared Amazon Prime access, changed the password, deauthorized devices, removed the linked payment methods. My dad's favorite documentaries went dark mid-narration, his streaming queue froze like a turtle on its back. Then there was the joint card, the one they added me to years ago because of my better credit. I flagged it for suspicious activity and requested a full review. The bank froze it instantly. 2 days after the freeze, my phone rang. My mom's number. I watched it vibrate and let it go to voicemail. It rang again. And again. Finally, curiosity and maybe a little boredom made me answer. She was crying. Not the, I'm sorry, kind of crying. The theatrical, wounded cry, like I had driven a knife through her chest. How could you do this, she sobbed. How could you be so petty? We're your parents. She wanted me to fold. To call her back, apologize, send a card, come home like nothing happened. But I listened. Let her talk. She wanted me to be ashamed. She wanted me to feel small. The thing that shook her, the thing she couldn't understand, was that I didn't. Not anymore. 3 days later my brother texted. Was that really necessary? No hello. No, hope you're okay. Just a guilt-laden line that made him sound like the moral compass of the family. He'd previously texted me only to ask for help covering dad's dental bill. No thanks. No gratitude. That old pattern of taking and taking was still in play, but now they wanted to shove the blame onto me. Not long after, a group text appeared. My mom had put herself down as the new Costco member. New family account for Costco. Me, Mike, and Jess. Thanks to Real Family for stepping up. Real Family? They weren't even trying to be subtle. It was bait, a passive-aggressive press release meant to make me jealous and small. I laughed instead. Real Family, huh? These were the people who deleted me from the guest list and then invoiced me like I was a line item on their spreadsheet. They thought excluding me was punishment. What they didn't realize was how liberating it felt to be uninvited. I kept going. The phone plan I'd been covering for years, the one I added when I had that cushy job discount, I gave them 1 week's notice. Phone plan ends Friday. Please switch to your own account. No replies. Classic. At 12:01 p.m. Friday their lines went dark. 3 numbers removed. I got the service confirmation in my inbox and then the chaos, dad calling from a random landline, the panicked voicemails, the guilt trips about prescriptions and emergencies. It's dangerous to shut off someone's phone, he said into the void. I didn't pick up. I let the messages pile up. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in over a year, Laura, messaged on Facebook. Hey, your mom called me. She said you're lashing out. Is everything okay? There it was, the narrative already being written. I wasn't reacting to years of disrespect. In their telling, I was unstable, spiraling, acting out. They would frame me as the problem because it was easier than acknowledging how much they'd taken. But I wasn't blind to the receipts and the accounts I kept for them. I had been the silent ledger, every invoice, every last-minute Venmo, the Amazon orders shipped to their house with my discount code, the streaming subscriptions, the dog's med sent to my address because it saved money. I started pulling threads, emails, bank statements, screenshots, and what I found made my stomach drop. Rent, groceries, car repairs, emergency transfers, gifts, stuff I had quietly covered because they asked, because I thought family meant helping without counting. When I totaled it up, it was $14,000 over 2 years. $14,000. And their message to me was that I was the selfish one. Then the legal letter arrived. I opened a certified envelope and laughed before the laughter curdled into something else. A cease and desist from some attorney with a generic letterhead. They accused me of meddling with finances, spreading false information, engaging in a campaign to harm their reputation. Basically, shut up or we'll sick lawyers on you. The desperation in that envelope was almost tangible. They were panicking, spinning the story to make themselves the innocent victims and me the villain. I didn't send a rebuttal. I instead forwarded the whole thing to the fraud team at the card issuer because a preliminary audit had already flagged multiple purchases: hotel stays, electronics, a $700 pair of noise-canceling headphones, flights, charges that weren't mine, purchases that didn't fit my pattern. I asked for escalation. Then I started building my case in earnest. I went through 2 years of emails, Venmo confirmations, texts, order numbers. I made a spreadsheet and watched the numbers form a map of how I had been financially propping them up while they turned on me. By mid-December the silence from them felt orchestrated. No calls, no petty guilt trips, just the kind of calculated quiet people use when they're muttering to each other behind closed doors, deciding which story they'll tell. Then came an American Express alert, attempted fraudulent charge for $2,100 at a home appliance store. Shipping address? My parents' house. The order email? Linked to my dad. The card? The joint one I'd already flagged. Of course they were still trying to swipe. Even after being frozen, they tried to keep living like nothing had changed. I called the bank. The representative asked if I wanted to dispute the charge. I said yes, and told her the whole history, how I had been the primary account holder, how they'd added themselves, how I'd been paying a loan, and how I'd recently reported unauthorized use. She said they could open an investigation and possibly involve legal. I told her to proceed. Then I dug deeper through my records, pulled everything together, printed copies, uploaded to a secure cloud, backed up on USB, and put a stack of hard copies in a fireproof box at the back of my closet. They still didn't seem to believe I'd fight. They thought I would cave like always, apologize, show up, smooth the ruffled feathers with a card and a turkey. They had no idea I had crossed a line. Something inside changed, not a dramatic breaking, but a quiet realignment where I realized I would no longer be their go-to fund or scapegoat. For days before Christmas a certified letter arrived for me again. This time it was a cease and desist with teeth, threats, legal-sounding phrases, warnings about defamation. It read like something a lazy lawyer would copy from a template. The message, though, was clear: shut up or we'll make you go away. Desperation has a particular smell to it, cheap, metallic, panicked. They were trying to shut me down. And yet, while they tried to silence me, the truth was slipping out in small, inadvertent ways. Jess, Mike's wife, the one who'd always rolled her eyes when I talked too loudly or cared too much, reached out. Her voice was low when she called, like she was hiding. She told me things I hadn't expected, little admissions about my mom borrowing cash, an unreturned designer bag, explanations that added up into a story none of them wanted to own. She said she and Mike had been playing along with my mom's stories, that they'd accepted the convenient lies because it kept the peace. But the peace was one-sided. Jess did something that made me catch my breath. She sent screenshots, voicemails, texts, messages where my mom and brother plotted how to pressure me, ways they planned to get around card freezes, how they would make me look unstable so nobody would question their actions. It was a betrayal of the family's private theater, yes, but it was also the truth being handed to me like a torch. Not long after, Laura, the cousin who'd initially texted me about mom's call, replied to the evidence I'd sent. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. That's insane. Her voice shifted. Mom's public post, the one painting me as a manipulative child with anger issues, disappeared. Her whole profile went dark. The threads they had spun to rope the neighborhood and the church into their version of events started to unravel. But the attempts to probe my files continued. Failed login attempts hit my cloud storage from IPs in their town. Someone tried to access my backups and failed two-factor authentication. They were panicked and clumsy, poking around where they didn't belong because they wanted to see what I had on them. I tightened the locks. New Year's came and went with no fireworks, just more failed intrusion attempts and a quiet that felt like the eye of a storm. Then a voice message from my dad landed in my inbox, calm, oddly conciliatory. He said they wanted to resolve things privately, that everything had gone too far. No mention of the $14,000, the charges, the frozen cards, just an attempt to get me back into a room where they could control the narrative. I let the voicemail sit for 2 days. Finally, I wrote them a letter, not a plea, not a diatribe, just a bullet-pointed list of facts, each amount, each charge flagged as fraudulent, copies of emails and screenshots, the dates the bank had frozen accounts, the streaming services I had paid for and they used. No drama. Just receipts. Certified mail, 1 copy to their house, 1 to my brother. No flourish. Just paperwork. You really want to burn it all down, don't you? My brother texted. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation that he framed like a moral failing on my part. But to me it felt like walking out of a trap. Then, the twist. Jess texted again, she's leaving. She'd been quietly saving, opening her own accounts, getting legal advice. She sent me a folder, screenshots, voicemails, messages, everything showing how they'd planned to make me look like the bad actor. She said, I thought you might want this. There it was, the very words my mother had typed about making people doubt me just enough. Proof. Not just suspicion anymore. I opened that folder late at night, the house quiet aside from the hum of the refrigerator, the blue light of my laptop casting a small, pale square on the kitchen counter. My hands shook a little as I scrolled through the messages, my mother's voice, my brother's plotting, Jess's half apologies and full admissions. Each screenshot felt like a key, unlocking a place I'd been allowed to clean but never to live in, the backroom accounting of a family that had depended on me and then turned on me when I stopped. And then, right there on the last image, a message that made my breath catch, something I hadn't expected to see in black and white. It was my mom's text. A message she must have sent to my brother, but Jess had screenshotted it. All we have to do is make people question him enough. Doesn't matter if they believe us completely, just enough doubt, and he'll look unstable. That's all it takes. I froze, staring at the words. My own mother had written that about me. Not about a stranger. Not about some enemy. About her own child. And the way she phrased it? So casual. Like she was talking about seasoning a soup, just enough salt. Only here it was just enough doubt to ruin me. I leaned back in my chair, the screen still glowing in the dark kitchen, and laughed. Not because it was funny, no, there was nothing funny about it, but because the audacity was almost unreal. For years I thought maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was the one making things worse. But here was the proof, she was orchestrating it. Pulling strings like I was some villain in a story she was writing. And now, thanks to Jess, I had her script in my hands. Jess didn't even ask what I'd do with it. She just sent it, then left me with the silence that followed. A silence heavier than any of my parents' threats. Because silence meant she knew I didn't need to say anything. She knew I was going to use it. The next day, my phone buzzed with another unknown number. I ignored it. Then came the voicemail. My dad again. His voice steady, rehearsed, like he'd practiced it in the mirror. We don't have to keep dragging this out. We can talk, privately, and settle this before it gets any uglier. Think about your family. Think about your reputation. There's no need to air dirty laundry. I let it play twice. Think about your reputation. That line was rich coming from him. For years, I was the one patching up their reputation, covering bills, paying off debts, making sure no one saw the cracks. Now they wanted me to care about appearances? The irony could have filled a book. So I wrote back. Not to him, not to Mom, but to the lawyer who'd sent me that cease and desist. I drafted a reply with attachments, the fraudulent charges flagged by MX, the audit results, screenshots of texts, the Venmo history, the receipts Jess had passed along. I kept it short, professional. No rants, no emotion, just evidence lined up in a neat little package. Then I sent a second copy, this one certified mail, directly to my parents' address. No signature. Just a stack of pages that screamed louder than any voicemail ever could. For 2 days, nothing. No calls, no emails, no passive-aggressive Bible verses. The kind of silence that doesn't feel like peace, but like someone's drawing up a battle plan. Then my phone buzzed with a text. From my brother. You really want to torch everything, don't you? I read it once, twice, then put my phone face down on the counter. He still didn't get it. To him, I was destroying something sacred. To me? I was walking away from a trap that had been disguised as a family my whole life. But the universe has a cruel sense of timing. Because just when I thought it couldn't twist any deeper, Jess messaged me again. I'm leaving Mike, she wrote. Already got a deposit on an apartment. I'm done. And I think you should see this too. Another folder. More files. And this time, what I opened didn't just prove betrayal. It showed something much darker, something that made me realize this wasn't just about money, or control, or even Christmas. It was about survival. And once I saw what was inside, I knew there was no going back. Would you like me to keep going and rewrite the next chapter with the same dramatic, YouTube narration style? Update, I thought I was done. Honestly, I really did. I pictured myself folding the receipts into a neat stack, mailing them off, and then breathing out for the first time in years. Cut the cards. Expose the lies. Close the accounts. Walk away. That was the plan. Turns out plans have a way of meeting reality, and reality knocked on my door. It was Sunday, around noon. I was home, barefoot, half listening to something on the TV, when there came that sound, deliberate knocking. Not the casual, friendly knock you get from a neighbor dropping off a pie. This one had a cadence like someone who expected me to open. My building is secure, you have to buzz to get in. Whoever was at my door must have followed someone in. Which already felt like crossing a line. I looked through the peephole and nearly dropped my coffee. There, in the hallway, were my parents. Not suitcases or dramatic staging, just them, standing like it was totally ordinary to be on my floor. My mom had a folder clutched in one hand. My dad's face was flat, like he'd rehearsed neutral control in front of the mirror. I didn't open the door. I wasn't about to let them waltz into the middle of my life. They knocked again. Louder. My chest tightened. Through the wood I could hear my mom, that practiced, soft voice she uses when she wants a favor. We just want to talk, she said. We're ready to make peace. We want to be the bigger people. I almost laughed out loud, a short, bitter sound that surprised me. No, I called through the door. You need to leave. Now. I wanted to add, and don't come back, but I didn't. The words felt unnecessary. My dad muttered under his breath about being reasonable. Then my mom knocked harder. This time she spoke in a way that made my scalp prickle. If you won't fix this, she said, and I can still hear the sentence, we'll fix it for you. That's when a tiny, rational part of me did something incredibly petty and brave. I hit record on my phone. Did I tell them? No. I pressed the little red dot and tucked the phone into my hand so it was ready to catch whatever nonsense unfolded. They stood there a minute longer. The hallway felt smaller, like the air had been sucked out. Then they left, but not empty-handed. When I opened the door a little later, there on the threshold was the folder. Inside, printed screenshots. My messages, cropped and rearranged so that lines I'd written in context, venting, frustrated, private, looked like threats. An email to my cousin, sliced down to a single sentence that made it read like an ultimatum. Old text fragments from years ago, plucked and displayed like trophies. At the back, a page in my mother's handwriting. You don't want this to become public, it read. Think about your job. Think about your future. Family should stay family. Translation, play along, or we'll make your life difficult. They tried to show up at my door to frighten me. They tried to manufacture a paper trail to flip the script. They wanted to force me back into my old role, quiet, apologetic, the one who covers the cracks while they live the life they want. I forwarded everything to my attorney that afternoon. Every screenshot. Every printed page. The voicemail where mom threatened to fix things. The little, staged folder meant to intimidate. My lawyer's response was efficient, almost clinical: preserve evidence, avoid direct contact, we'll file if needed. Good advice. Smart advice. Advice I'd wished I'd had years ago. And, shout out to Jess, she told me she would testify if it came to that. I didn't expect her to turn, and yet she did. She'd already started untangling herself from Mike and my parents, quietly building her exit strategy. Her willingness to stand up felt like a match in a dark room. For the record, I do not work at some no-name gig where a smear would float by unnoticed. My job isn't small. It's not the sort of place that shrugs when your name gets dragged across a social feed. So when mom's note said, think about your job, she was trying to rattle me where it would hurt: my reputation, my livelihood. Threats wrapped in handwriting and family language. Their tactic was clear: intimidate, then gaslight. Make me fear the fallout more than they feared the truth. They wanted me to fold. Instead, I did the opposite. I doubled down. I saved copies. I encrypted backups. I sent certified mail. I notified my employer discreetly and gave them the facts before gossip could. I lined up witnesses. Jess's screenshots were already in the cloud, timestamped, immutable. My attorney began drafting the next move. And then, just when I thought I had a moment to breathe, my phone buzzed with a caller ID I didn't recognize. I glanced at it, and in the tiny preview my stomach dropped. A screenshot had been attached to the notification. I stared at it until the letter swam. Would you like me to keep going?